that's the challenge is learning how to prioritize yourself
Mm.
over everybody else. We're constantly, since birth, trying to please our parents, please our family, please our teachers, please institutions, please the community we live in and want to help. And you can't ever get anything accomplished, though, until you're really settled and pleased with yourself
Hmm.
and pleased with what your actions and goals and decisions are.
Hello, Be Beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of It's Time to Be You, the podcast that helps people pleasers take control and finally put themselves first. I'm your host, Ariel Vaughn, a recovering people pleaser and certified life coach on a mission to help you drop the shoulds, embrace who you are, and live life on your terms. So, before we get into today's episode, I want to give a gentle content warning that this conversation includes discussions around human trafficking, abuse, trauma, PTSD, and violence. Today, I'm speaking with Gwen Cassady, and she shares parts of her story publicly in hopes of creating awareness, helping others feel less alone, and pushing for change through education, policy, and prevention work. Throughout this conversation, we talk about trauma, healing, perseverance, people pleasing, self worth, and the importance of using your voice. This episode is deeply vulnerable and at times difficult to hear, but it's also a conversation about resilience, survival, advocacy, and what it means to keep going after unimaginable hardship. Some of the topics we cover today may be heavy, so I'm really grateful that you're here and willing to step into this difficult conversation with me. It's so important to bring awareness to these topics, and I'm so grateful for Gwen sharing her story today. Now let's get into the episode. Well, Gwen, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to hear about you and your story. So I want to hear it from you first. Will you just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are?
A little bit, I'll try.
We'll dive into it. So this is like the overview to start.
So, my name is Gwen Cassady, and I was born and raised in a small town called Zionsville, northwest of Indianapolis, Indiana. And it was home of the only Bentley Rolls-Royce dealership in the Midwest in the 70s and 80s. So it attracted this rich white psychopath male to our town on a regular basis. And I also think there's a lot more to the story that I don't know because I was so young. But my mother began trafficking me at the age of 4,
Mm.
and so I experience on a daily basis being brutalized. I definitely had some serious challenges with my self esteem, always trying to please everybody. And that was just ingrained in my psyche because I was trafficked and because it was so extreme. One of my primary buyers, who was good friends with my mother, we'll just call him Jerk Arthur, and he created Little Lady Guinevere. So, as a 4-year-old in the evenings, I would have to meet with the Knights of Zion, was their name, and they did bad things to me. But because I was constantly trying to appease my mom, gain the approval of my mother, gain the love of my mother that I never had, that just ingrained from such a young age, especially during that psychosocial development phase of age 4. And my father was gone all the time. We were lucky if he was home 3 or 4 days out of a month. Sometimes he'd be gone for 2 or 3 months at a time. And he was living his life in double life. And so it was really just embedded in me at a young age that I wasn't worthy enough, I wasn't good enough. My mother only pimped me out and not my 4 sisters.
Wow.
And I'd have to go collect the rent from the neighbors. And when I would tell her that they were doing bad things to me, she would scream in my face. I remember one time vividly, I remember I had this memory that she had all of these clothes with tags hanging from them. They were all new in her closet.
Mhm.
And she told me to go collect the rent. And I said, how they were doing bad things to me. And she screamed, well, what do you expect me to wear? How do you expect me to have new clothes? And I remember touching the tags and that physical touch of the tags. Like, but look, mom, you already have all these new clothes. And then her screaming, well, how do you expect your sisters to eat? And
Mm.
then that's when I developed my first eating disorder at the age of 4.
Wow.
So I would starve myself at dinner time and let my sisters eat so that I wouldn't have to go do bad things in my mind.
Mm.
And then in the middle of the night, I would get up because I'd be so hungry that I'd run downstairs to the pantry. And I
Mhm.
can remember I also had a thing with numbers, and I'll get to that in a minute why. But I can remember like counting out 4 saltine crackers
Mhm.
because I was 4 years old and deliberating, well, how many should I eat? But my sisters won't be able to eat. But I'm starving. Well, then I'll just have 4 because I'm 4. And counting the dots on the crackers and eating them like each dot at a time.
Wow.
And yeah, so it's all those little tiny itty bitty memories that you have. And the counting part, the number part, one of the games that King Arthur that he gave me was, you're probably too young to remember, and it was probably already long past before you were born, but there was this little Mr. Owl professor,
Mhm.
and it was one of the first electronic games,
Uh-huh.
and it was math facts. So while they had me laid out on a picnic table in the Lincoln Park in Zionsville, the
Mhm.
Knights of Zion doing what they were doing to me physically, King Jerk Arthur gave me this Mr. Owl professor to keep me pacified and
Mhm.
complacent.
Yeah.
And so as they're doing bad things to me, I'm just playing away and doing my math facts.
Mhm.
So then fast forward, my 2 cousins prostituting me to the graduating class of a Southern military college in South Carolina.
Wow.
And they raped me to my death on July 7th, 1989. And one of the cadets resuscitated me, but
Mhm.
there were probably 200 or 300 cadets.
Yeah.
Not all of them participated, obviously, but those that did, they get away with it. We live in this patriarchal, rich white male society, especially now in modern times because of our leadership.
Yeah.
Within 3 months, I was raped by my freshman math teacher
Mm.
in 1989. My teacher had everything plotted because he made certain I had to stay after school the day that I was wearing my white cheerleading outfit. And I remember after it happened, he told me like I would never go to college if I told anyone. And that put a seed in my brain, which honestly, in the weirdest of ways, I want to thank him because I think it pushed me to go to Harvard and first UVA. It really kind of ingrained in my psyche that I was never be good enough and I could never get into college. I remember walking home that day and physically having some bad complications from the incident.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to this place on a road called Bloor Lane and thinking, I'm not even going to be able to go to Ivy Tech. I can't go to ITT Tech. I'm going to
Mhm.
end up having to wait tables at the Old Women Cafe for the rest of my life. I can't go to college if
Mm.
I say anything.
Right.
And I think was a very poignant moment as to why I proceeded in pursuing really good higher education. So I luckily got in by the grace of God to UVA. I was accepted. I was one of the very last people to get in off the wait list.
Mhm.
And then I matriculated to UVA in the fall of 93.
Mhm.
I pursued economics with wanting to have a career on Wall Street selling emerging market equities, concentrating in Southeast Asian nations and the tiger market economies.
Yeah.
And so I pursued all of these externships on Wall Street. I worked at Bear Stearns, Merrill Lynch, Smith Barney. And then one night I'm walking to the library. I literally have ripped jeans on, flannel shirt, t-shirt, baseball hat,
Mhm.
and tennis shoes. And I see a sign on the bulletin board that said emerging market tiger giant Malaysia's prime deputy minister of finance will be speaking in the dome room. And I'm like, I'm on the way to finish this 10-page paper tonight. I've written
Uh-huh.
maybe 2.5 pages. And I was like, screw that. I'm going to hear him speak. So
Yeah.
I walked down, I walk in the dome room of the rotunda, and I go and I sit in the very front row and a couple seats over from the aisle. And within a couple of minutes, the whole place just fills up with all these Asian businessmen. And there were less than half a dozen Westerners in the room.
Yeah.
And so he comes out to the podium, and before he comes out, these men all sit right next to me, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" I was probably the only Western female in the room, which would be very prophetic for when it would be like when I went to Malaysia.
Yeah.
They were like, "What are you doing here?" And I told them my intentions of wanting to sell emerging market equities, concentrating in the Asian tiger markets. And I had all these statistics memorized because I was working on this paper.
Yeah.
And so they're like, you need to come to the meet Dr. Fifiden. And so they invited me to the private reception afterwards. And again, wearing my backpack, my baseball hat, my toe shoes, my ripped jeans, and my flannel shirt, out of place completely. And someone introduced me to him, and we just
Mhm.
started talking about their economy, and he was impressed. And in hindsight, I would have been impressed with myself, but I never
Yeah.
was.
Me.
People pleasers are never impressed with with their own behavior and actions of themselves.
Right.
And he invited me to come work for him.
Yeah.
And I did. It was an amazing year of my life. I was in Europe studying at the business school in Copenhagen, Denmark for the first 6 months. And then I ended up moving to Asia in June. And or was it late May, early June? Worked first for the Minister of Finance in Kuala Lumpur. I wrote the business plan for the Bank of Islam to expand into Western financial markets. I worked at the first ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nation Bankers, first derivatives conference. I'm totally dating myself. And
Well, I'm
the
like, I'm
Kuala Lumpur.
curious to go back for, I mean, we'll go back more, but just what interested you in going into this field of economics, especially like on this global level? Like, where did that come from?
As a little girl, to escape the abuse that I grew up in,
Yeah.
I remember when I finally was able to get the better bedroom in the house, the guest bedroom. Initially, my three sisters and I all shared one room.
Mhm.
But when my older sister's physical abuse started to become just too outrageous.
Mhm.
My mother let me have the guest bedroom. So I rearranged all my furniture and made a little Bermuda triangle. And I would read to my Cabbage Patch Kids to escape. So I
Yeah.
would go into these faraway lands like Pippi Longstocking, Amelia
Mhm.
Bedelia, Judy Blume, all of these wonderful children's literature and young adult books. And I can just remember dreaming of faraway places and trying to get as far
Yeah.
away as possible
Yeah.
from the hell on earth that I was raised in,
Right.
to try to wait until my mother's emotional warfare would dissipate.
Mhm.
And that would never happen. I finally came to terms with, it's like I say, I came to terms with, but then I know in my heart, I still wish, well, maybe, just maybe before she dies, maybe before she goes completely senile, maybe she'll love me. Maybe she'll love me. Maybe she'll love me. That's, and then the other big caveat is my father really cares about money.
Mhm.
Sometimes he cares about money more than anything else, and I would say that's more often the case than not.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to have a job where I could create an international children's organization. I wanted $10 million, and I wanted to do this before I was 25 years old.
Wow.
I know. That was me dreaming in high school. So I said the only way that'll ever happen is if I work on Wall Street. And
Yeah.
so in my senior year in high school, I checked out every single Wall Street book my librarian could find for me in our high school library,
Yeah.
like Den of Thieves, Liar's Poker, like all those juicy, salacious Wall Street books.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to compete with my father and just show him that love is not money and money is
Mhm.
not love.
Yeah.
And to show that money is not what life is all about.
Mhm.
It's about helping people and it's about loving one's soul and not the pocketbook. So
Definitely took
I
like
and
your experiences to really shape your future. So it's I love that you were able to take such horrific experience to really drive you and motivate you. And I'm curious, did you have that belief that you would be able to make it on Wall Street?
No, but I
Mm,
kept persisting. One thing I have is perseverance. I
yeah.
am definitely not the smartest person in the room ever. I'm not a finance person, but I used to be really good at sales. And like
Yeah.
whenever I had sales jobs, I would always be the number one salesperson
Yeah.
on the teams. And I knew I couldn't manipulate markets the way the
Mm,
big traders are able
yeah.
to cash out and to really do well personally, financially.
Right.
But the problem was this. And honestly, in hindsight, I would have done really well if I would have continued on the path, but I couldn't. And the reason why was because when I was in Malaysia and was starting to recognize and figure out just how corrupt financial systems and financial markets and capital markets are, I personally, ethically could not do it.
Yeah.
People can question morality, but I try to live by a solid ethical compass.
Mm-hmm.
That is my goal.
Yeah.
And seeing just how corrupt the leaders of the Asian tiger market giants were and how they weren't helping the people of their countries.
Right. Yeah. Like, how did you then walk away for that?
So I remember I always wanted to act, and that had a lot to do with one of my primary pimps
Mm-hmm.
was one of the most influential people globally in the world, probably in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Wow.
And the particular evil senator who my mother sold me to on November 4th, 1984, when I was a 9-year-old little girl
Mm-hmm.
at the Clinique makeup counter at Bloomingdale's on Magnificent Mile in Chicago. And what I had to go through for hell on earth for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days.
Wow.
And when we were driving back in the limo, I can just remember, and I was such a sweet kid. I was just a precious 9-year-old little girl. And I can remember thinking, I'm just going to be really nice. If I'm really nice, maybe he'll let me go. If I'm really nice, I know he'll let me go. And so I was like, hey, mister, I promise I won't say anything to anyone. I won't say anything to anyone. And then he told me that everything I was doing was just like acting and that I should just try to be like a little actor. And that the night I married my husband, that would be the night I lost my virginity and that I was still a virgin until my wedding night.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was embedded in my psyche, those two things.
Yeah.
And the acting part, especially though, I can remember asking my mom a couple of times, I just want to take acting classes to be an actor.
Yeah.
But fast forward, I can remember one of the biggest blockbuster films of the time period and this particular action franchise. We were sitting in the movie theater in Kuala Lumpur that summer that I was working in the Tiger Giant Economies.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend who got the tickets, I'd never seen anything like it. This theater was insane. It was jam packed. It was sold out. There were hundreds of people just trying to get in to see this one movie. And I can remember sitting there thinking while watching this movie, I am going to do this. And then I can remember thinking, well, if this actor who doesn't have a UVA education can make it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Screw my parents, screw Wall Street. I'm going to go for it now while I'm 21 years old.
Yeah.
And so I got back to UVA and I interviewed with the top six bulge bracket firms on Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
And then, not all of them, but three or four of them, and then consulting firms. And all the people I interviewed with were just miserable. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget in my JP Morgan interview, they picked six of us
Uh-huh.
out of hundreds of applications to interview. And the man asked me, there was a man and a woman, and he asked me, he said, tell me, what was your favorite class and why? And I
Mm-hmm.
thought about it for a nanosecond and I said, you know what? I said, it was acting. I said, because acting teaches you how to learn how to control your emotions so that whenever you're in a boardroom, if things aren't going your way, you know how to control your emotions. And he looked at the woman, he said, that is the best answer we've received all day. And I said, that's
Yeah.
it. That's my sign. This JP Morgan interview. This is my sign. I'm going to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So welcome to Hollywood. What's your dream? Everybody's got a dream. Welcome to Hollywood.
Oh my God, I love
Um,
it. So, were the people in your life just like surprised that you just were like, not Wall Street, Hollywood?
Everyone was, but inherently, I always knew I wanted to act and I
Yeah.
wanted to learn the craft of acting.
Yeah,
And
wow.
for me, it wasn't about becoming famous and having all these fancy cars and having all these big houses and being liked and being well known and being liked. And everyone wants to like me, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. For me, it had more to, as it would be a total blast. And
Yeah.
it is for me because I still do a little bit of local acting. I love it. I love it. It's so much fun to do for me. I
That's
love the part of developing characters,
yeah.
people's backstories, and intertwining the interesting people I've met in my life with my character development. And then also the other parts of it are just the loving movies. I love good stories.
Yeah. So I feel like you've just lived so many lives. So I'm curious to just kind of go back at how long your abuse started at 4. How long did it
Yes.
last or continue?
Almost exactly 20 years.
Yeah.
And my grandfather died. So it was at his funeral. When I got to the funeral, my cousins were abusive there.
Mm.
And like my one cousin who's still living asked me if I wanted to hold his penis while walking into the bathroom. And my dead grandfather's upstairs in the casket. We
Wow.
were in the basement of the church. And then my bad uncle, who prostituted me in California, locked the door on the prayer room when the entire family was gathered in a circle, my mother looking over and seeing me being locked out of the room. And then just all the memories started surfacing of the Southern Military College.
Yeah.
I had not had those memories surface, and this is why. It's very important for your listeners and viewers.
Yeah.
So, whenever you're going through complex trauma, and as a young child, you have billions of synapses in your brain forming
Hmm.
every day, all day long. When you are in a extreme situation where it is truly fight or flight,
Hmm.
those synapses can't form properly. So
Right.
they get buried and buried and buried and buried. It can take one bad uncle, take one bad cousin to and have it be triggered, that memory, and then it's able to form the ending of that memory. Like it's able to heal that synaptic development process
Okay.
because of the complexity of my neurobiological synaptic development and because I had massive rapes starting at the age of 4 and also back to King Jerk Arthur who
Hmm.
was a chemist at Eli Lilly.
Hmm.
He made me take a pill every night that
Oh.
I suspect and I'm almost positive it had something to do with my neurobiological functioning
Yeah.
because I didn't have any memories. And
Wow.
people are always like, that's impossible. If that happened to you, that's so drastic. Why don't you remember it? It's because of that reason.
Right.
Until you are in like either a safe environment and a safe therapeutic environment, or like I said before, seeing that bad uncle, seeing that bad cousin that can trigger that memory. So 2009, all this is happening. I'm being brutalized emotionally, verbally. My one cousin like punched me at the wake.
Mm.
And so 2009, I jump in my rental car right
Hmm.
and then I decided to go out west. I was invited to my girlfriend's and college roommate's wedding. And I just wanted to get away. I had a pot of cash on me
Yeah.
and needed to just go camping and hiking and biking. So I loaded up my little rental car with all my camping gear and head out west. When I placed my house on the market in North Carolina and decided I was going to go back to grad school after selling my home for
Hmm.
teaching.
Okay.
And so then I get out to California
Hmm.
and I call my realtor and she's, oh, well, your family came to your home and I let them in so they could get your things. And my heart fell. And
Yeah.
I basically just was like, what are you talking about? And I
Yeah.
said, you need to call the police right now. I said, what are you talking about? No, I'm not going to call the police. said, no, no, we'll get your things back. Don't worry about it. And I believed every word she said. And my mother and my sister stole everything down to the toilet paper. So that my older sister wanted me to be her free nanny. And my younger sister stole all my merchandise because I also had a couple of boutiques
Mm-hmm.
and little shops. And she stole everything so she could start her own boutique with all my merchandise in the Outer Banks.
Wow.
And my mother took my computer. One of my siblings erased the entire memory. And so my family forced me into homelessness. I decided to go to Charlottesville. So I ended up in Charlottesville. I lost everything. I short sold my homes so that I could go back to grad school and wipe the slate clean. I worked so hard. Nobody will ever know how hard I worked, only to have it all wiped away. And meanwhile, living on food stamps in Charlottesville,
Mm.
showering at the Haven. Thank God for the Haven.
Yeah.
Shout out to them. And for 2 years,
Wow.
living out of a dilapidated one room office on the downtown mall while restarting graduate school.
You really are like resilient and have really persevered through a lot. I'm curious with your family, do you
Yes.
still keep in touch with them? Have you forgiven them or what is that?
So I was baptized, it'll be 7 years on April 20th,
Yeah.
and Catholic. I'm the descendant of Saint Oliver Plunkett. It was important to me to reconnect with my own mitochondrial DNA, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
and to follow like that ancestral genetic DNA, and more importantly, to pursue the path of Christ
Yeah.
and to learn of the path of Christ. And my priest has said, I don't have to forgive. And there are some things that are truly unforgivable.
Yeah.
I want to focus more on forgiving myself.
Hmm.
Forgiveness comes from within, but there are some things that I will never forgive.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think
with my
that's
family, because you asked specifically about my
mhm.
family, you just keep on keeping on.
Yeah. I think it's very understandable. And I agree that there are certain things that are just not forgivable. And I think it's a great point that you bring up of the importance of forgiving yourself because everything, happens internally. And when did you start speaking out about your story? Because you had so many people telling you to not say anything and putting that fear into you. When did you start being able to share?
At the age of 4, I literally, at the age of 4, I knew what happened was wrong because of the level of violence and because of what happened one dark summer night.
Yeah.
And I can remember going to the police and telling the police about it. And for that kind of courage, it's beyond me. What I had then, if
Yeah.
I had that kind of courage then, I have to have it now.
Yeah.
And everyone was just because it was so outlandish because of the level of violence. Nobody would, it was just a child's imagination. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And because
Wow.
my mother is a better actor than Meryl Streep could ever dream of being,
Yeah.
like I remember 4 specifically because they brought in some man. I remember he had really big chops. Remember when chops
Yeah.
like in the 70s? And it was the summer of 79. And I remember he had really big chops. He was really big, like my dad. He was
Hmm.
like 6'2", 6'4" range. And he played Russian roulette with me.
Okay.
He sat me on my lap
Uh-huh.
with a gun at the age of 4,
Oh my God.
spinning it, telling me he would kill my whole family. And that is the tactic every trafficker, everybody involved in trafficking, involved in covering up, plays to children, is that they will kill their family.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. And the reason why, I mean, as a lived experience expert, that's what they did to me every time.
Yeah.
And then I remember when they asked me like, well, are you sure? And I had to lie. No, I was just making it all up because he pushed a paper on the floor, told me to pick it up. And when I looked under the table, he had the gun on his knee.
Gosh.
So those are like specific, distinct memories. But
Yeah.
that's crazy. That's crazy. That sounds crazy. And it does sound crazy. And then again, like when I got home, when I was traveling the first time from Chicago at the age of 7 after second grade,
Hmm.
where I did have to perform and do the worst of the very, very worst that I ever had to do as a child. And I remember calling the operator. And back
Mhm.
then, it was when the phones had that big dial, the
Mhm.
big round dial. Again, you're probably too young to even know what I'm talking about. Back in the old days, Ariel, we had the phones with a big curling cue cord and a big dial on it. And that dial had a zero. And when you hit zero, you'd wait all the 3 seconds to get back to zero. And so I can remember like dialing that big O and just
Yeah.
waiting and waiting for it to get back. And the woman coming on, and I remember asking her, how many days does a child have to be missing before they're considered kidnapped? And that was the first question out of my mouth.
Wow.
And I remember her saying, what's happening? Are you okay? What's going on? And then I was like, and she started asking me a couple of questions. And then my mother came in and yanked the phone out of my hands. So she's fine. She's just playing. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And then another time when I was brought back from Chicago in the white stretch limo, I can remember my principal also, my classmate of mine convinced the lunchroom teacher on duty that I had to tell the principal that something was wrong. And
Mhm.
a man walked, oh, yeah, there's a white stretch limo pulling up to an elementary school with a weird
Yeah.
man getting out in a small town in Zionsville, Indiana, where everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And I had to wear a white fur coat, wearing high heels and a mini dress as a 9-year-old fourth grader walking into my school.
Wow.
I remembered I told the principal then and had the courage to tell him only because my classmate demanded essentially to the lunchroom teacher
Mhm.
that we had to do it. And he called my mom and my hysterical and psychopathic mother from hell, just screaming at him, telling him she would have his job and blah, 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 blah. And I will say, in his defense, what happened to me and what I was able to tell at the time is truly beyond the movie The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
Remember the movie
Yeah.
and just how crazy the story was. And then they went back to the bulletin board and pieced together all those things.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so unbelievable what happened.
Yeah.
No school administrator, no administrator, nobody could possibly believe
Yeah. So you
it.
tried to
And
share
people
it
have,
in several
yeah,
times and had
yes.
people not believe you and have your mom also interfere and make it seem like that you were just making things up. When did people finally start to believe you?
They still don't. So it's a never ending battle. But at this point in time, because I'm finally at an age when you hit 50, Ariel, you'll discover it too for yourself. It's a beautiful time in life when you just don't give a crapola.
Yeah.
There is no righting the wrongs that are done. There
Mhm.
is no righting the evils that are done. But what you can do is rewrite it. And
Mhm.
so now I'm telling my story and but back to being just resilient and persevering, that's all you can do. And that's definitely embedded in my psyche. I have tremendous resilience and I'm able to bounce back, especially because of having been unhoused so many times.
Mhm.
And plus, you can throw me into any pool, whether it's the royal family of Saudi
Mhm.
or it's deep down in heart of Texas. I can survive anywhere.
Yeah. Have you published any like memoir or are you going to?
Yes, so Nanny Next Door is my beginning and my launch and foray into publishing my first book, April 1st, April Fool's Day, which is totally appropriate for this book. It has been, at first, I just wanted to make it a fun, lighthearted book similar to Nanny Diaries or Devil
Mhm.
Wears Prada.
Yeah.
And then I started writing it, and it was like, this is so unbelievably cathartic
Yeah.
because there still was a lot of unresolved trauma from Nanny.
Mhm.
And that sounds crazy. Like, how could you be traumatized as a nanny? Trust me, if you nannied for the people that I nannied for, you would be traumatized too,
Yeah.
especially the Hollywood family. So the story is about four nannies,
Uh-huh.
Hollywood presidential candidates, hedge fund billionaire from New York, and the royal family of Saudi. And then I've also trafficking tales. I've been working on that as well, and that
Mhm.
is a compilation of short stories. And we also offer cross intersectionality of training so that parents, caregivers, and educators and administrators and whomever can read these short stories
Mm-hmm.
to children and have age appropriate prevention modules. So for parents with 4 year olds, you can read about my experiences as a 4 year old,
Mm-hmm.
both for parents. Then we also have the tales and stories that are more suitable for children that are age appropriate.
Yeah.
And then it walks you through what's appropriate to tell your 4 year old
Mm-hmm.
so that you empower the children without traumatizing and
Mm-hmm.
without causing anxiety.
Yeah.
We live in a world that is just so anxiety ridden.
Yeah.
One of my mental disorders is general anxiety disorder. So, that PTSD will always take the cake. But yeah, that's what Trafficking Tales is about.
Yeah. And where can people find that? And where can they
I'm
find
gonna
all of
self
your stuff that you're doing?
I'm self-publishing on Amazon. So the release for Nanny Next Door will be April 1st
Mm-hmm.
in less than a month. And I have a team of people, some great Harvard colleagues that are going to be doing the editing for me. I'm going the backwards route. I'm doing it myself and not going to seek a publisher
Mm-hmm.
or an agent just due to the content.
Yeah.
And because I've tried getting an agent, I just don't have time anymore trying and trying and trying. So why not just do it myself?
Yeah, exactly.
And the trafficking tales, I'm hoping will be completed by June 1st.
Okay. Awesome. And that
But
will be
it'll
on
be
Amazon as well.
yeah, and we're really hoping to, it'll definitely be done by the fall by school year because we're working with, I just had a call with the Attorney General's office from Virginia,
Yeah.
and they and I definitely would like to see Virginia be a leading state in combating human trafficking.
Yeah.
And right now, I also help with doing medical professional human trafficking training
Yeah.
in the state of Virginia. It's mandated by law.
Hmm.
And one of my really good survivor leader girlfriends and a delegate that I really appreciate on the other side, being a conservative, they helped create this law where it is now mandated in the state of Virginia that every medical professional must have 1 hour of human trafficking training.
Oh,
And we're
wow.
trying to pass the law next session where we are mandating educators
Yeah.
to have human trafficking training. I would like to see 3 hours minimum, just because I know, like my principal, if he would have had the training that I'm giving, I would not have walked away with my mother who had to go to aerobics that day after I
Right.
couldn't sit in my chair in my classroom when they brought me back in the limo
Wow. I love that
after
you
four.
are using what you've been through to really make changes in the systems and provide these training and teaching so that people can be aware and really help to prevent it. And I know that you are about to do a walk to really create some awareness, right?
Yeah, so that's actually the one thing I've had to take off my plate in the
Ah.
last week. Unfortunately, the Walk for Freedom, for several reasons. The Walk for Freedom I'm walking from Indianapolis to Chicago.
Yeah.
I was gonna do it April 3rd to April 20th so that I leave Indy on right after April Fool's Day when the book is released for Nanny Next Door. Because I was
Yeah.
also labor trafficked by the Hollywood family I nannied for. The mother stole my passport after
Oh,
forcing me to watch her do really bad things to her son
wow.
and having to listen to her crawling into her son's bed every night because our wall backed up, the bed's backed up to the wall. We had a shared wall,
Yeah.
and that led to literally a nervous breakdown
Yeah.
because held me against my will. I can remember I
Wow.
called Qantas immediately to get on the next plane, and they asked for my passport number, and that's when I realized she stole my passport.
Yeah.
And so I was labor trafficked by them, making less than $4 an hour, forced to watch what was essentially live kiddie porn
Oh my
between the
gosh.
mother and the son. And my own trauma was so dormant,
Yeah.
but that had to have been obviously a component of my nervous breakdown.
Right.
And then the hedge fund New York billionaire family, that wretched, unfortunate mother also stole my passport. And it sounds so ridiculous. I mean, but people are like, but you flew in a private jet. You were staying in a $70 million villa. Yeah, but they stole my passport and wouldn't let me leave the gates of the villa to go for a walk. I
Right.
mean, it's still labor trafficking, even if it is
Yeah.
on a different socioeconomic strata.
Yeah.
In any event, back to the walk. And also, I just found out on a call that there is another walk of the same name by a very well-known agency.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of naming it Hope for Freedom, we're going to call it 200 to Protect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a walking from Indianapolis to Chicago, 200 miles. And I'm going to do it in September.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's still going to happen. It's just being pushed back a couple of months. Also, primarily, I've invested 6 years in Harvard and a lot of money
Yeah.
and a lot of time. I'm in my final stretch in my capstone course right now,
Oh,
and
that's
I did not
exciting.
realize this. It is. It's really, I'm very excited. I didn't realize this, but one of my dear friends, he is managing an organization called Seed,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically supply social innovators and entrepreneurs with free consultants. So he had arranged a team of 5 consultants for me. And then he suggested, he's like, have you gotten approval from your capstone advisor? And I thought, no, but that would be a good idea. So when this is all in the last 2 or 3 days, Ariel,
Yeah.
literally. And so my professor said it was okay. And then the capstone advisor said, absolutely not. Like that's against Harvard's academic integrity. And I was
Mm,
checking with him to make certain because my academic integrity and just my integrity in general
for
is
sure.
very important to me.
Yeah.
I may not have, I may not have always had a moral compass, but I have always had ethics.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a big difference.
I'm curious.
So
Say
we're
say more
particular
about that difference.
morality is also, I think, institutionally constructed
Mm-hmm.
as well as geopolitically constructed. And you look at one particular country's morality, and it's completely different than another country's base of morality. And
Yeah.
who is who to say what is morality?
Right.
Ethics, on the other hand, and something that I always instill in my students. I taught in Petersburg, in the lowest performing school in all of southeastern Virginia,
Oh wow.
in the entire region. Yeah, it was very challenging. Peabody Middle School. I love those kids though.
Yeah.
And one thing I always tried to instill in them was the chair principle: character, honor, accountability, integrity, and respect.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I always try to instill in all of my students, that those are the most important things. Like your ethics, your like morality wavers with kind of where you are in life,
Mm-hmm.
physically, geographically wise, but also, and I don't want to go on a religious diatribe, one's one's moral compass
Yeah.
is going to be different than another. Then, whereas ethics are the foundation of a house,
Mm-hmm.
and morality is kind of like the inner workings. It's the plumbing, it's the insulation, it's the construction of the house.
Yeah.
The foundation will always stay there, but just depending on physically where you are again, where we are in history.
Yes.
Look at morality in the 50s versus morality in the 70s versus now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot to. I was like, that's like a whole nother conversation. I feel like I could just keep talking to you and learning about your story and all the insights that you have. But what do you really want to, what message do you want to leave with people today?
I want people to know that if you are going through a difficult time in life, which we all do, and
Mm-hmm.
there are varying levels of difficulty, know that it does get better. You have to persevere. You have to be resilient. I also now when I guest lecture at UVA, I always try to instill in the students what I call the principle.
Mm-hmm.
People, resiliency, and ethics
Mm,
are the three most important things in my life,
yeah.
or three of the most important things in my life. And it does get better. And especially in your 50s, when you hit that 50 threshold, you just have to keep on going. Life is not going to get any easier, but
Yeah.
it can be better.
Yeah.
And I was selected as the most inspirational student by my classmates at Harvard.
Yeah.
And I want to inspire people to get out there and do something as well. If it's as simple as writing a letter or picking up the phone and calling your local delegate, call Katrina Carlson if you want to see change,
Mm-hmm.
work with her on new laws. She's the best delegate and one of the best politicians in our state.
Yeah.
So is Carrie Delaney out of Fairfax. Delegate Delaney and Delegate Carlson have been absolutely amazing politically. You can change the law.
Mm-hmm.
Wrote a new bill this past session. I helped create new legislation. And next year, I've already written two of the components of this particular bill are in negotiation right now with the General Assembly. And
Mm-hmm.
the other two are going to be presented next legislative session. And we're
Wow.
also working on new bills and to create new modality of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other big important thing is if you are ever trafficked, this is the symbol. Most people
Mm-hmm.
don't know that. Hold your hand up.
Yeah.
Ariel, I want you to do this right now with me too. Hold your hand up.
Okay.
Tuck your thumb in, four fingers over the thumb. So
Yeah.
if you are truly in the worst situation anyone could be in, which is being kidnapped and trafficked and going through things no one can imagine, if you're in a truck stop area, if you are in a public place, somebody will recognize this
Yeah.
and put it behind your back so they can't see it. Your traffickers can't see you. If you see something, say something, call 911 immediately. Those are the most important things that you can do to help other people and know that goodness wins. And that instead of pleasing other people, since this podcast is about people pleasing,
Yeah.
start pleasing yourself
Yes.
and pamper yourself, please yourself. It's as simple as giving yourself a hand massage, incorporating the Havening technique, tapping your face. Please yourself first. You've got one life to live, and time is of the essence, and time is the only commodity that we really have.
Yes. And another question that I love to ask is how has being yourself impacted your success and where you are today?
Because I had to fight so hard to survive in the most evil circumstances imaginable starting at age 4,
Yeah.
I think that part of my being and that part of my character and personality will always be there. I
Mm-hmm.
try to tone it down because I know I'm intimidating and I don't mean to be. I know that I'm overwhelming. I don't mean to be. I can be overbearing and again, I don't mean to be. Know what's working for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and enhance those characteristics and features and try to minimize your weaknesses. So maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses would be the most simple answer I could give.
Yeah. And then what really kept you going to survive such hardship at a young age and to keep going? How did you keep going?
My Papa Finn. If it wasn't for my Papa Finn, I would not be sitting here right now. He is my shining star during the darkest of days as an adult. And when I was a child, it was pure adrenaline and pure physical strength as a child. In my DNA, my father was a super athlete, and
Mm-hmm.
my papa then walked. They put a pedometer on him when he was the superintendent for Bassett Furniture Company
Mm-hmm.
in Bassett, Virginia, and he literally would walk a marathon a day
Wow.
uh, when they put the pedometer on him.
Yeah.
And so his physical DNA, and I mean, he could carry trees. I can remember as a little girl just seeing him like walk up the hill in the backyard of his,
Yeah.
literally carrying entire logs up at the age of 70.
Yeah.
And it's just insane the physical strength both he and my father have. I
Yeah.
mean, if I didn't have that DNA, there's absolutely no way I would be sitting here right now having this discussion with you.
Yeah.
But back to your question of what kept me going as a child was pure adrenaline that kept me going, but it
Mhm.
also was having to protect my family and having to protect my family. And I was the only one who could
Mm.
protect my family, and I have to protect my family, which is why I stopped sleeping too at the age of 4.
Yeah.
And still to this day, everyone's like, you don't sleep. You know, every roommate will tell you, every landlord will tell you, I don't require much sleep. And then the other big thing is just knowing that there is a greater purpose for
Mhm.
me on this planet, even if it is just helping one child escape the hell on earth that is human trafficking. They say that less than 1% of sex trafficked children are identified. And
Wow.
for that, I'm so blessed and lucky to be able to still be sitting here to be able to say that. And I recognize that, especially given what I went through when children wouldn't make it out alive. But my Papa Finn is who has kept me going. My Papa Finn, he will always be my heart and soul. He's like the epitome of the best human that I will ever know.
Yeah. Well, I am so glad that you had him to keep you going and that you were driven by purpose and that you were doing so much to help create awareness and teach people about it so that, that 1% that's found is, more and that this also happens less. So thank you for sharing your story and doing the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And one more shout out plug, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We just formed the Central Virginia Anti-Human Trafficking Collaborative.
Uh huh.
So if anybody would like to be involved in anti-trafficking efforts in Central Virginia,
Yeah.
please reach out to me and we would love to have you. We've got an amazing board, amazing team, and just incredible people that are helping out locally.
Yeah.
Because it is. I mean, and what's even bigger than that right now is just online sexual exploitation and CSAM, child sexual abuse material.
Hmm.
It doubled. And this year compared to last year, the numbers have doubled.
Wow.
Yeah. And if you are interested in having a training for your organization, for your school, for your church, for your mosque, for your synagogue, for anyone, please let me know and I can provide a protect to prevent training for you or your organization. And one other big thing that we just launched, Blue Mosaic, the small nonprofit that I founded with a team of Harvard graduates, is we have 6 programs. We do policy at the federal level and the state level,
Hmm.
and we've also visited the United Nations to create policy to combat homelessness
Hmm.
for the unhoused. And then we have our Vision Forward Media Division, which is our social justice documentary filmmaking. Then we have the Protect to Prevent program and Trafficking Tales, which is to combat human trafficking. And then we have Kids Climate Club. Kids
Okay.
Climate Club was launched with a small grant from the Dave Matthews Band 3 years ago
Yeah.
when on Earth Day we had 2 schools where I basically taught over 300 children 5 STEAM activities.
Uh huh.
And then after that, then after we have it kind of figured out and the online platform is secure and
Hmm.
set in a way that we can have mass growth so teachers can log in, administrators can log in, parents and the students themselves can all
Yeah.
log in safely. Then we're going to expand it to the state level and then national.
That's
So
amazing.
that's the Kids Climate Club.
Yeah. Well, I will definitely your info and the resources in the show notes because I think it's really important to share. So thank you.
Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I'm so incredibly grateful to Gwen for sharing her story, her advocacy work, and her resilience that has carried her through so much. One of the biggest takeaways from this conversation is that our experiences may shape us, but they do not have to define the rest of our lives. I love that Gwen says that life doesn't get any easier, but it does get better. And if you're listening today feeling like you're still in survival mode, please know you're not weak, broken, or behind. Sometimes surviving is all you can do, and even that takes incredible strength. No matter what has happened to you or what you've been through, it is possible to move forward and create a life that feels meaningful and true to you. You deserve support, safety, healing, and a life that feels like your own. And if you'd like to connect with Gwen, support her work, or learn more about the organizations and resources she mentioned in today's episode, you'll find everything in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who may need to hear it. Leave a review or send me a message. I always love hearing what stands out to you. It's time to do more than survive. It's time to speak up. It's time to be you.